Miss Rabbit has many secrets, and some of them are scary. But are you ready to find out what she's hiding? Slaves. One of Miss Rabbit's most terrible secrets is that she forces cows and sheep to work for her, and this is something that almost no one in that universe notices. You've probably seen scenes of the pig family drinking milk or even eating cheese, which is a food made from milk. You've also seen Mummy Pig almost buying a wool coat for George. These things can only exist if they are taken from animals, in this case milk from cows and wool from sheep. Miss Rabbit is the boss of the market, and she also owns clothing stores, which means she needs cows and sheep to have something to sell. But the world of PEPPA is made up of animals. Do you understand how weird this is? If she has these products to sell, then it means she took them from someone. Maybe we should talk to Mrs. Cow and Susie's mom to see if they're okay, but in the meantime, let's talk about Miss Rabbit's other secrets. So grab your popcorn and get comfy on the couch. Another Cinewave is starting. Free time. What exactly does Miss Rabbit do in her free time? This is one of the biggest mysteries in the world because as far as we know, she never takes a vacation. But as everyone knows, not all businesses stay open all the time. That's why we always ask ourselves, what does Miss Rabbit do in her spare time? And there are theories. Miss Rabbit doesn't seem like the type who rests. A person can have fun doing physical exercise, for example, but that's not resting. That's why we are sure that whatever Miss Rabbit does for fun definitely involves continuing to work. One example is the swimming lesson episode, when she was teaching the kids how to swim. See, that's work, but at the same time, it's a way to have fun. So our guess is that Miss Rabbit spends her vacations doing activities where she can make money and have fun at the same time. What do you think about that? Jobs. And speaking of work, how exactly does Miss Rabbit have so many jobs? The episode Miss Rabbit's Day Off answers that question. On that day, Peppa, Susie, and George went to visit Rebecca Rabbit. Let's remember that this character is Miss Rabbit's niece. On that same day, Miss Rabbit herself also went to visit her sister and her nieces and nephews. She said she had to take care of 3 jobs: the supermarket checkout, the ice cream stand, and driving the bus. But because she fell and hurt her foot, she couldn't take care of any of those jobs. Do you see how this already answers everything? Miss Rabbit divides her jobs by days, meaning she doesn't take care of everything on the same day. If she works at the supermarket on Tuesday, for example, she won't be there the next day. The question is, who takes care of Miss Rabbit's jobs when she's not there? Clones. How many Miss Rabbits exist in the world? The answer is pretty simple to understand if you do some basic math and have watched the episode where Peppa goes to New York. On that day, Peppa goes to America, and the Miss Rabbit from her city is the one flying the plane. But when they arrive in New York, the Miss Rabbit from that city appears. That is one of the few moments when Miss Rabbit meets one of her clones. Yes, clones, not sisters. We'll talk about that in a moment, so stay with us. The Miss Rabbit from New York says there is a Miss Rabbit in every city. If that's true, then you just have to count how many cities exist in the world. But luckily for you, we've already done that math. There are approximately 4 million cities in the world, counting both big and small cities. If you apply this information to Peppa's world, then that is the number of Miss Rabbits spread throughout the show. Wow, that's really a lot. But why are there so many of them? That's a mystery. Would you like to have a clone just like Miss Rabbit? Comment the hashtag rabbit so we can get to know you. Clone. We told you that Miss Rabbit is a clone, and that's almost certain. If you don't agree, we're going to show you the proof. Let's start by explaining that Miss Rabbit is the daughter of Grandpa Rabbit, who is a great scientist. As far as we know, Grandpa Rabbit has 2 daughters, Mrs. Rabbit, who is Rebecca's mother, and Miss Rabbit, who is her twin sister. Do you understand how strange that is? If Miss Rabbit is Mrs. Rabbit's twin sister, then why does only Miss Rabbit have multiple clones spread across the world, while her twin sister seems unique? The answer is simple. Grandpa Rabbit only has one true daughter, which is Mrs. Rabbit, Rebecca's mother. He cloned his daughter more than 4 million times and spread those clones around the world, all so they could work hard and make a lot of money. At the same time, Grandpa Rabbit left one of the clones of his original daughter to be the sister of the real Mrs. Rabbit. That's why one of the clones thinks she is a twin sister. That's pretty crazy, right? But it actually makes perfect sense. What if Miss Rabbit is actually the narrator of the show? That's not such a strange thing to think. Of course, the narrator has a male voice, but nothing stops Miss Rabbit from changing her voice using computer editing. But why does this make sense? There are only 2 characters in Peppa's show who are everywhere at the same time: the narrator, who sees everything, and Miss Rabbit herself, who has thousands of jobs and clones. Nothing stops them from being the same character watching over all the characters in the show. Could this really be true? If the show ever reveals who the narrator is, Miss Rabbit will definitely have something to do with it. Filming. That must be why she secretly films all the characters. Didn't you know that? It's true that Miss Rabbit records the other characters, characters, and this is yet another piece of evidence that she is the narrator. In the episode George's New Clothes, in the very last scene, we see that when the pig family is jumping in muddy puddles, some of the mud splashes onto the screen, proving that it's actually a camera lens. Now, in the episode TV Land, we see that Miss Rabbit is the head of the town's television station. In other words, Miss Rabbit is truly a very sinister character because she films the other characters even though it's illegal and strange. But why does she do that? Our guess is that in reality, she is an evil boss who likes to monitor all of her employees. Don't know what we're talking about? We'll show you in a moment, but there's also another possibility. Mrs. Rabbit films everyone because she is actually a secret agent working for the Queen. We saw in the episode that takes place in London that Miss Rabbit is very close to the Queen. The head of the country likes to monitor citizens because she wants to know if everyone is following the laws. Money. We just said that Miss Rabbit is an evil boss who likes to monitor her employees, and you must have been curious to know why, but now we're going to tell you. You know that Miss Rabbit is the boss of many jobs all over the world. She even received a medal from the Queen for being the hardest working person. But this is interesting, because if she is the boss of so many businesses, then that means she makes a lot of money and pays the salaries of many employees, right? Now think about how curious this is. People work at Miss Rabbit's businesses. Because of that, these characters receive their paycheck at the end of the month. Then, these people use that money to pay their bills and shop at the supermarket, pharmacy, clothing stores, and more. But Miss Rabbit is the boss of those same stores, which means it's almost like she never loses money because people give the money back to her in other businesses. That's why she films everyone. She wants to know where people are spending money so she can figure out how to make even more money. That's why she must be the richest character in the entire show.
The subscribe button is right there, waiting for you.
How about clicking and keeping up with everything we post? Moon. Why does Miss Rabbit need so much money? With so many jobs and so many clones, she must be extremely rich. That's where things start to get really interesting. In a special PEPPA story, when she and some friends visit the moon, we see that Miss Rabbit has a store in space. But what is she going to sell, and to whom? Let's start by talking about that red rocket. Grandpa Rabbit has a rocket that he uses to travel through outer space. And if you do a quick search, you'll find that space travel costs more than all of your mom's makeup combined. And who would Miss Rabbit sell things to with a store on the moon? It's obvious that she's trying to expand her businesses into space because she must know that aliens exist. That's why she needs so much money. Children. Does Miss Rabbit have a husband and children? Well, so far the show hasn't revealed much about that, but we can imagine that there's a higher chance she has children than not. And the reason is simple. In Peppa's world, characters behave like the animal species they represent. Edmund Elephant, for example, is very intelligent because he is an elephant, and elephants have the best memory in the animal kingdom. In our world, rabbits have many offspring. Mrs. Rabbit alone has 4: Rebecca, Richard, Rosie, and Robbie. If Grandpa Rabbit has as many daughters as it seems, then there are more than 4 million. That's why it doesn't make sense for Miss Rabbit not to have children, but maybe she works so much that she doesn't have time to spend with kids. What do you think about that? Italy and Australia. If you've watched the episodes where Peppa travels to Australia and Italy, you'll notice that the versions of Miss Rabbit from those two countries don't appear, and that's a strange secret about the character. The Miss Rabbit from New York made it very clear that there is a clone in every city, but the Miss Rabbit from Italy and Australia didn't show up to meet Peppa. Were they busy? Or maybe they don't like the pig family? That's a big mystery that still hasn't been solved. Immortal. Could Miss Rabbit be immortal? This is an important question because Grandpa Rabbit said in the episode Seaside Treasure that he is 100 years old. Does that mean that rabbits in Peppa's world live a very long time? And in that case, would his daughters and grandchildren be the same? It's a secret that hasn't been revealed yet, but it's important to stay here with us to find out everything when the news comes out.
The fun doesn't stop here. There are 2 amazing videos waiting for you on the screen.
Thanks for watching, and see you next time.